Hello, everybody. Welcome back to The Gentleman Psychic. I am your host, your MC, your story time extraordinaire. I am Richard-Lael Lillard. Richard-Lael is one name, not two. If I were just Richard, I'd be a dick. Anyway, welcome back to Story Hour. And we're just going to have a few minutes here before the clock strikes just to say hello. I hope you're doing well on this Friday, April the 14th. It is so good to see. I see Sinstar Music is here. Thank you so much for that lovely Mary Jane. Good evening, my dear. So I came on a little bit early. I accidentally posted on here that it was 10 and 9 o'clock on all of my medias, but I meant it to be here. Good evening, Mr. Maxwell. Good evening. I am so glad to see your lovely faces. You always, all of you, always make me smile, and that is wonderful. We'll just have a few more minutes of getting yourselves ready. Make certain that you've got something to drink. Make certain that you are holding your princess or your bear or your puppies or your kitties or your babies or your dollies, whatever it is, or your devils, whatever gives you pleasure. Laurent, hello, 2:59 a.m. in France. Bonjour, I guess it is bonjour now. Bonjour, on my way to bed, but I will watch tomorrow. Thank you. Bisous, la belle from France. Merci beaucoup. Bonne nuit. All right, my dears, we'll let this clock go, and then we've got about one more minute before we go on for the Gentleman Psychic and story time. It is so fabulous that you are here. And of all of the Fridays and of all the things that you could do, I am deeply honored that you chose to spend your time here with me. Thank you so much. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Greetings, handsome. Have a great weekend. Monferno, thank you so much. Here comes the clock. I wanted to start off today talking about April 14th because today was my mother's birthday, and it is the very first birthday that I have not had a mother. Anyway, she was my best friend, and yes, she's come to visit me, which was lovely, and yes, it's I knew that it was going to happen. I knew it was going to happen at some point, but today is her birthday. So before we get into good evening, Mary Jo, good evening, Sam. Before we get into our actual story time, I wanted to show you one of the very first things that she made for me. I was about 3, I believe, and this is Ted E. Bear. And Teddy Bear has a necktie. She made better ones later on, better quality ones later on, but this one was she did this mostly by hand. And I asked that my bear have a necktie, and my mother, she obliged. And so this is Teddy Bear. And yeah, he's worn and he's faded, but it is so lovely that I have this little token of appreciation. Hello, Amanda. Good evening. So yeah, that was my mother, and that was her birthday today. And as an honor to her, some of you have heard this story before, but I wanted to read the story that she always read to me at bedtime. And I'll hold up Teddy Bear right here next to my heart, and then I will read to you a story that perhaps I need to move on from. And there's a part of me that says I will. Minja Bear, hello. But this story, my mother always wanted she loved that I was kind, and I was always sort of innocent, even though I didn't fit in and I was weird. And I would look through the windows at the art room at the other students who were taking class, and I would hide behind her skirts as we'd go to church, and I would, I didn't want anyone to look at me. And then I remember we did there was a church that we used to attend, and looking back, I cannot believe this was a thing, but we went to this church that once a month had Native American Day, which sounds really great, but it was really sort of mostly white people dressing up in what they thought was Native American, and throw in a splash of turquoise and some bone beads and feathers, and it was Native American, and it was the day. So I had missed Native American Day, and I was always about dressing up, and I missed it. And my mother said to me, well, I said, well, I missed it. Now I don't know when the next one is, and I really wanted to do it. And my mother says, well, honey, why don't you just do it? And I said, well, everyone will laugh at me. And she says, no, they won't. They'll think it's wonderful. And it doesn't matter if they laugh anyway. You go in there and you wear what you want to wear. So I went that next Sunday with feathers in my hair and little beaded moccasins, which I get is completely embarrassing in a modern world, but I was a little boy, and it was my mother. She was always one to encourage me to do what I wanted to do as long as I didn't hurt anybody. And she was good. There was one time, I will tell you, that sort of makes me laugh. I was about 15, and now my mother at this point had already she'd gotten scared by a modern world that we live in. And I had found a wig in a collection of things that my parents had in one of their back buildings. It was a blonde wig, and I powdered it white with baby powder, and I put pins in it, and I curled it up, and I put on a cravat like a jabot, and I put on little knee breeches and white socks, and I tied doilies around my wrists, and I went to go out. I went to go to school, and my mother says, no, you will not. I said, but mother, it's me. This is how I want to be. She says, no, you don't. And even if you do, you can do it when you're older. But she said, there are people who will think that you are crazy, and I will not have that. And I said, but mother, I love it. She says, then you do it when you are out of my house, but you don't do it here. And I laugh because many years later, I did actually do just that. I did wear, I was on America's Next Top Model, cycle 20, episode 9, cycle 9, episode 1, cycle 19. I can't remember. It was where the men and the women were first introduced in the same show. Anyway, but I did a lot of the powdered wigs, and it was fun. Both of my parents were really quite clever in that, and people would say, look at that weird kid. And my father would say, that is my son, and he wears top hats and tailcoats, and if I could, I would dress just like him. And one day I'm going to have a leather tuxedo just like it. And my mother made him a leather dovetailed formal coat, and it was very, very sweet. So with that, I want to read for you Thomas Jefferson. Yes, a little bit Thomas Jefferson. Relationships can be complicated. Yes, that is true. Mike Pope, hello. With that, my darlings, I wanted to start off, and maybe it's not a wise idea because the story makes me cry. I wanted to start off with a story my mother always read to me in honor of her birthday. And she said to me, I'm crying even before I get to the story. She said, honey, you are that little old car. And to her point of view, she was right. Now, there comes a time when one can no longer be that sweet little old car. But without further ado, tonight's story hour will be started with All in a Day's Work. All in a Day's Work. Story by Caroline D. Emerson. Pictures by Sergio Leone. Once upon a time, there was a little old car. One side was banged in, one door was gone, its engine made a loud chug chug, but it ran along the road just the same. One day, the little old car saw a big new green car. The big new green car was standing by the side of the road. "Anything the matter?" asked the little old car. "Starter won't start," said the new green car. "I'll give you a push," said the little old car. The little old car gave the big new green car a push. It pushed the new car to the top of the hill. The new car started to roll down the hill. It went faster and faster. Then its engine started off. Off went the big new green car. "It did not even say thank you," said the little old car with a sigh. "Oh well, it's all in a day's work." The little old car ran on. Soon it saw a great big trailer truck standing by the side of the road. "Anything the matter?" asked the little old car. "No gas," said the big trailer truck. "I'll get you some," said the little old car. It ran down the road to a gas station. "5 gallons to take out," said the little old car. It carried the gas back to the big trailer truck. "That feels better," said the trailer truck. "You don't know how dry I felt." The big trailer truck started off down the road. "Hey there," called the little old car. "You did not pay me for the gas." But the big trailer truck was too far away to hear. "Oh well," said the little old car with a sigh. "It's all in a day's work." The little old car ran on down the road. Soon it saw the blue pickup truck by the side of the road. "Anything the matter?" asked the little old car. "Flat tire," said the pickup truck. "I left my jack at home." "You can use mine," said the little old car. Soon the blue pickup truck was jacked up. Off came the old tire, and on went the new tire. "That feels better," said the blue pickup truck. It ran off down the road. "Hey there," cried the little old car. "You went off with my jack." But the blue pickup truck was too far away to hear. "Oh well," said the little car with a sigh. "It's all in a day's work." Summer passed. Winter came. Snow fell. The road was icy. The little old car ran slowly down the road. Suddenly, a dog ran out into the road. "Look out!" cried the little old car. The dog was in a hurry. He was late for his dinner. He did not see the little old car. He ran right in front of the little old car. He ran right in front of it. The little old car stopped as fast as he could. It did not want to hit the dog, but its wheels began to slip on the ice. It began to slide to the edge of the road. "Oh dear," cried the little old car. Crash, bang, it hit a fence. Bang, crash, it went through the fence. Then the little old car rolled down a bank. There it lay in the snow and the mud. And evening came on. "No one will ever find me here," cried the little old car. "Now I'm good for nothing but the old car dump." All of a sudden, the little old car heard a noise, a big trailer truck coming up the hill slowly. The lights of the big trailer truck lighted up the road. The lights of the big trailer truck lighted up the fence. Something had gone right through the fence. "What's this?" cried the big trailer truck, and it stopped. Then it looked, and it saw the little old car. "Why, aren't you the little old car that got gas for me that day?" asked the big trailer truck. "I will never need gas again," said the little old car. "Don't stop for me. I am done for. I am good for nothing but the old car dump." "Don't be so sure," said the big trailer truck. Just then came a honk honk of another car. Down the road came a big new green car. Its headlights were very bright and new. "What's the matter here?" cried the big new green car. It stopped. It looked down the bank. There lay the little old car in the snow and mud. "Why, you're the little old car that gave me a push one day," said the new green car. "My starter would not start." "My starter will never start again," cried the little old car. "Go away. Just leave me here. I'm good for nothing but the old car dump." "I'm not so sure," said the new green car. Honk, honk, honk. Another car came down the road. It was the blue pickup truck. It stopped. "What's the matter here?" asked the blue pickup truck. It looked down the bank. It saw the little old car. "Why, that's the little old car that let me use its jack," said the blue pickup truck. I forgot to give it back." "I will never need a jack again," said the little old car. "My tires will never feel the road again. I am done for. I am good for nothing but the old car dump." "I'm not so sure," said the blue pickup truck. The blue pickup truck got out a big, long tow rope. The rope was fastened to the little old car. The new green car lighted up the road and it kept other cars away. The big trailer truck began to pull on the rope. Slowly, the little old car began to move slowly up the bank. At last, it stood on the road again. "There you are," cried the pickup truck. "Is there any air in your tires?" asked the trailer truck. "Have you got some gas?" asked the new green car. "Try your engine," said the pickup truck. The little old car tried its starter. There came a whirr, whirr, whirr. Then it stopped. "Try again," said the trailer truck. Whirr, 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 went the starter, and suddenly the engine went chug, 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 chug. "Three cheers!" cried the pickup truck. "Is everything all right?" asked the new green car. "How do you feel?" asked the pickup truck. "Can you make it?" asked the big trailer truck. Slowly, the little old car started down the road. It was good to feel the road under its tires again. It was good to feel the gas in its engine. It was good to be out on the wide, open road. The engine of the little old car went faster and faster. It chugged, 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 louder and louder. Its lights grew brighter and brighter. "Thanks," honked the little old car as it ran down the road. "That's all right," called the big trailer truck. "Glad to be of help. It's all in a day's work." Now, you must pardon my tears. Um, my first word was car. I was very young. Oh goodness, I was months old. And my very first word was car. We were driving along. Chad Hatter, hello, my dear. Sam Zog, hello. Um, we were riding along in the car, and I was in the front seat. In those days, you could do that. No seat belts, because that was something we didn't do. And I jumped up and I said, "Car." And my mother said, "What did you say?" And my father said, "I think he said car." And I said, "Car, car, 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 car." And then, as a boy, I told my mother, I said, "Mummy, one day I want to have a half a car." And she said, "What do you mean you want a half a car?" I said, "It's half, like it doesn't have a top." She says, "Oh, well, honey, those are convertibles." I said, "Well, then I will have a convertible." She says, "No, you won't, because they're dangerous." And I said, "Well, I want one." She said, "Well, if you're in a car accident, you could really die." And I said, "I know, but I still want one." And she says, "Well, maybe one day when you're older, you can have a convertible. And if something happens to it, maybe you'll want to die then anyway." She always had a morbid sense of humor, but she was so funny. Um, and then, of course, we were, it was just a thing. We loved our old cars. And I never actually had one. I had a 38 Buick that was supposed to be restored with my father and myself, but it never got around to it. It was sold a long, 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 long time ago. Anyway, with that, my lovelies, let us get into the reason that you have joined me this evening. Happy birthday, sweet Loretta. Happy birthday. Good night, Mrs. Lillard, wherever you are. Anyway, the reason that you joined me is because we are reading Speak of the Devil. Osmodius, or the Devil on Two Sticks. A night in the month of October, covered with its thick darkness, the famous city of Madrid, already the inhabitants retired to their homes, had left the streets free for lovers who desired to sing their woes or their delights beneath the balconies of their mistresses. Already had the tinkling of guitars aroused the care of fathers or alarmed the jealousy of husbands. In short, it was near midnight when Don Salafius Leonardo Perez Zambiolo, a student of Alcala, suddenly emerged by the skylight from a house into which the innocuous son of the Cytherean goddess had induced him to enter. He sought to preserve his life and his honor by endeavoring to escape from 3 or 4 hired assassins who followed him closely for the purpose of either killing him or compelling him to wed a lady with whom they had just surprised him. Against such fearful odds, he had for some time valiantly defended himself, and had only flown at last on losing his sword in the combat. The bravos followed him for some time over the roofs of neighboring houses. But, favored by the darkness, he evaded their pursuit, and, perceiving at some distance a light which love or fortune had placed there to guide him through this perilous adventure, he hastened toward it with all the remaining strength. After having more than once endangered his neck, he at length reached a garret, whence the welcome rays proceeded, and without ceremony entered by the window, as much transported with the joy as the pilot who safely steers the vessel into port when menaced with horrors of shipwreck. He looked cautiously around him, and somewhat surprised to find nobody in the apartment, which was rather a singular domicile. He began to scrutinize it with much attention. A brass lamp was hanging from the ceiling, books and papers were heaped in confusion on a table, a globe and a mariner's compass occupied one side of the room, and on the other were ranged phylus and quadrants, all which made him conclude that he had found his way into the haunt of some astrologer, who, if he did not live there, was in the habit of resorting to this abode to make his observations. He was reflecting on the dangers he had by good fortune escaped, and was considering whether he should remain where he was until the morning, or what other course he should pursue, when he heard a deep sigh very near him. At first he imagined it was a mere fantasy of his agitated mind, an illusion of the night. So, without troubling himself about the matter, he was in a moment again busied with his reflections. But having distinctly heard a second sigh, he no longer doubted its reality. And although he saw no one in the room, he nevertheless called out, "Who the devil is sighing here?" "It is I, signor, student," immediately answered a voice in which there was something rather extraordinary. "I have been for the last 6 months enclosed in one of these phials. In the house lodges a learned astrologer who is also a magician. He it is who, by the power of his art, keeps me confined in this narrow prison. You are then a spirit, said Don Sallustius, somewhat perplexed by his new adventure. I am a demon, replied the voice, and you have come in the very nick of time to free me from my slavery. I languish in idleness. For all of the devils in hell, I am the most active and indefatigable. These words somewhat alarmed Signor Zambulo. But as he was naturally very brave, he quickly recovered himself and said in a resolute tone, Signor Diabolus, tell me, I pray you, what rank you may hold among your brethren. Are you an aristocrat or a burgess? I am, replied the voice, a devil of importance, nay, the one of highest repute in this as in the other world. Perchance, said Don Sallustius, you are the renowned Lucifer? Bah, replied the spirit, why, he is the mountebank's devil. Are you Uriel, then? Asked the student. For shame, hastily interrupted the voice. No, he is the patron of tradesmen, of tailors, butchers, bakers, and other cheats of the middle class. Well, perhaps you are Beelzebub, said Leonardo. Are you joking? Replied the voice. He is the demon of Dunice and footmen. That astonished me, said Zambulo. I thought Beelzebub one of the greatest persons at your court. He is one of the meanest of its subjects, answered the demon. I see you have no very clear notions of our hell. There is no doubt, then, said Don Sallustius, that you are either Leviathan, Belphegor, or Ashtaroth. Ah, those three now, replied the voice, are devils of the first order, veritable spirits of diplomacy. They animate the councils of princes, create factions, excite insurrections, and light the torches of war. They are not such peddling devils as the others you named, by the by. Tell me, interrupted the scholar, what post is assigned to Flagle? He is the soul of special pleading and the spirit of the bar. He composes the rules of the court, invented the law of libel, and that for the imprisonment of insolvent debtors. In short, he inspires pleaders, possesses barristers, and besets even the judges. For myself, I have other occupations. I make absurd matches. I marry graybeards with minors, masters with servants, girls with small fortunes, with tender lovers who have none. It is I who introduced into this world luxury, debauchery, games of chance, and chemistry. I am the author of the first cookery book, the inventor of the festivals of dancing, music, plays, and of the newest fashions. In a word, I am Asmodeus, surnamed the Devil on Two Sticks. What do I hear? Cried Don Sallustius. Are you the famed Asmodeus, of whom such honorable mention is made by Agrippa and in Calvicia Salmones? Verily, you have not told me all of your amusements. You have gotten the best of all. I am well aware that you sometimes divert yourself by assisting unhappy lovers. By this token, last year only, a young friend of mine obtained by your favor the good graces of the wife of a doctor in our university at Alaka. That is true, said the spirit. I reserved that for my last good quality. I am the demon of voluptuousness, or, to express it more delicately, Cupid, the god of love, that being the name for which I am indebted to the poets, who, I must confess, have painted me in very flattering colors. They say I have golden wings, a fillet bound over my eyes, that I carry a bow in my hand, a quiver full of arrows on my shoulder, and have withal inexpressible beauty. Of this, however, you may soon judge for yourself, if you will but restore me to liberty. Signor Osmodius, replied Leandro Perez, it is, as you know, long since I have been devoted to you. The perils I have just escaped will prove to you entirely. I am rejoiced to have an opportunity of serving you, but the vessel in which you are confined is undoubtedly enchanted, and I should vainly strive to open it or to break it, so I do not see clearly in what manner I can deliver you from this bondage. I am not much used to these sorts of enchantments, and, between ourselves, if cunning devil as you are, you know not how to gain your freedom. What probability is there that a poor mortal like myself can effect it? Mankind has this power, answered the demon. The vial which encloses me is but a mere glass bottle, easy to break. You have only to throw it on the ground, and I shall appear before you in human form. In that case, said student, the matter is easier of accomplishment than I imagined. But tell me in which of the files you are. I see a great number of them, and all so alike one another, that there may be a devil in each, for aught I know. It is the fourth from the window, replied the spirit. There is the empress of the magical seal on its mouth, but the bottle will break nevertheless. Enough, said Don Salefus. I am ready to do your bidding. There is, however, one little difficulty which deters me. When I shall have rendered you the service you require, you know that I shall not have to pay the magician in my precious person for the mischief I have done. No harm shall befall you, replied the demon. On the contrary, I promise to content you with the fruits of my gratitude. I will teach you all you can desire to know. I will discover to you the shifting scenes of the world's greatest stage. I will exhibit to you the follies and vices of mankind. In short, I will be your tutelary demon, and more wise than the genius of Socrates. I undertake to render you a greater sage than that unfortunate philosopher. In a word, I am yours, with all my good and bad qualities, and they shall be to you equally useful. Fine promises, doubtless, replied the student, but if reports speak truly, you devils are accused of not being religiously scrupulous in the performance of your undertakings. Report is not always a liar, said Asmodeus, and this is an instance to the contrary. The greater part of my brethren think no more of breaking their word than a minister of state. But for myself, not to mention the service you are about to render me, and which I can never sufficiently repay, I am a slave to my engagements, and I swear by all a devil holds sacred that I will not deceive you. Rely on my word and the assurances I offer, and what must be peculiarly pleasing to you, I engage this night to avenge your wrongs on Donna Tomosa, and perfidious woman who had concealed within her house the 4 scoundrels who surprised you, that she might compel you to espouse her and patch up her damaged reputation. The young Zambulo was especially delighted with this last promise. To hasten its accomplishment, he seized the file and, without further thought on the event, he dashed it on the floor. It broke into 1,000 pieces, inundating the apartment with a backlash liquor. This, evaporating by degrees, was converted into a thick vapor, which suddenly dissipating revealed to the astonished sight of the student the figure of a man in a cloak about 2 feet 6 inches high and supported by 2 crutches. This little monster had the legs of a goat, the long visage, pointed chin, and dark swallow complexion, and a very flat nose. His eyes, to all appearance very small, resembled two burning coals. His enormous mouth was surmounted by a pair of red mustachios and ornamented with two lips of unequaled ugliness. The head of this graceful Cupid was enveloped in a sort of turban of red cape, relieved by a plume of cocks and a peacock's feathers round his neck was a collar of yellow cloth, upon which were embroidered divers patterns of necklace and earrings. He wore a short white satin gown or tunic, and encircled about the middle with a large band of parchment of the same color, covered with talismanic characters. On the gown also were painted various bodices, beautifully adapted for the display of the fair wearer's neck scarves of different patterns, worked or colored aprons, and headdresses of the newest fashion, all so extravagant that it was impossible to admire one more than the other. But all this was nothing as compared with the cloak, the foundation of which was also white satin. Its exterior presented an infinity of figures delicately tinted in Indian ink, and yet with so much freedom and expression that you would have wondered who the devil could have painted it. On one side appeared a Spanish lady covered with her mantilla and leering at a stranger on the promenade, and on the other a Parisian grisette, who before her mirror was studying new airs to victimize a young abbe. At that moment, opening the door, here the gay Italian was singing to the guitar beneath the balcony of his mistress, and there the Scottish German, with vest unbuttoned, stupefied with wine and more begrimed with snuff than a French pet-metier, was sitting surrounded by his companions at the table covered with filthy remains of their debauch. In one place could be perceived a Turkish bashaw coming from the bath, attended by all the Horus of his seraglio, each watchful for the handkerchief, and in another an English gentleman who was gallantly presenting to his lady-love a pipe and a glass of porter. Besides these, there were the gamesters, marvellously well portrayed, some elated with joy, filling their hats with pieces of gold and silver, and others who had lost all but their honor, and willing to stake on that, now turning their sacrilegious eyes to heaven, and now gnawing the very cards in despair. In short, there were as many curious things to be seen on his cloak as was the admirable shield which the Vulcan forged for Achilles, at the prayer of his mother, Thaddeus. With this clifference, however, the subjects on the buckler of the Grecian hero had no relation to his own exploits, while those on the mantle of Asmodeus were lively images of all that is done in the world at his suggestion. Upon perceiving that his appearance had not prepossessed the student very greatly in his favor, the demon said to him, smiling, "Well, Signor Don Cephas Leandro Perez Zambulo, you behold the charming god of love, that sovereign master of the human heart. What think you of my air and my beauty? Confess that the poets are excellent painters." "Frankly," replied Don Cephas, "I must say that they have a little flattered you. I fancy it. It was not in this form that you won the love of Psyche." "Certainly not," replied the devil. "I borrowed the graces of a little French marquis to make her dote upon me. Vice must be hidden under pleasing veil, or it wins not even woman. I take what shape best pleases me, and I could have discovered myself to you under the form of Apollo Belgi, but that, as I have nothing to disguise from you, I preferred you should see me under a figure more agreeable to the opinion which the world generally entertains of me and my performances. I am not surprised," said Leandro, "to find you rather ugly. Excuse the phrase, I pray you. The transactions we are about to have with each other demand a little frankness. Your features, indeed, almost exactly realize the idea I had formed of you. But tell me, how happens it that you are on crutches? Why, replied the demon, many years ago I had an unfortunate difference with Piledrock, the spirit of gain, and the patron of pawnbrokers. The subject of our dispute was stripling who came to Paris to seek his fortune. He was capital game, a youth of promising regions of mid-air and Pilardic, who excelled me in strength, cast me on the earth after the mode in which Jupiter is related by the poets to have tumbled Vulcan. The striking resemblances of our mishaps gained me from my witty comrades. The subsequent of the limping devil, or the devil on two sticks, which has stuck to me from that time this. Nevertheless, limping as I am tolerably quick in my movements, and you shall witness for my agility. But added he, a truce to idle talk, let us get out of this confounded garret. My friend, the magician, will be here shortly, as he is hard at work on rendering a handsome damsel, who visits him nightly, immortal. If he should surprise us, I shall be snug in a bottle in no time, and it may be hard, but he finds one to fit you also. So, let us away, but first to throw the pieces of that which was once my prison out the window, for such dead men are these do tell tales. What if your friend does find out that you are missing? What hastily replied the demon. I see you have never studied the treatise of the compulsions. Were I hidden at the extremity of the earth, or in the region where dwells the fiery salamander, though I sought the murkiest cavern of the gnomes, or plunged in the most unfathomable depths of the ocean, I should vainly strive to evade the terrors of his wrath. Hell itself would tremble at the potency of his spells. In vain should I struggle. Despite myself should I be dragged before my master to feel the weight of his dreaded chains. That being the case, said the student, I fear that our intimacy will not be long duration. This redoubtable necromancer will doubtless soon discover your flight. That is more than I know, replied the spirit. There is no foreseeing what may happen. What? Cried Leandro Perez. A demon? And ignorant of the future? Exactly so. Exactly so, answered the devil. And they are the only our dupes who think otherwise. However, there are enough of them to find good employment for diviners and fortune tellers, especially among your women of quality, for those are always most eager about the future who have the best reason to be contented with the present, which and the past are all we know are or care for. I am ignorant, therefore, whether my master will soon discover my absence, but let us hope he will not. There are plenty of files similar to the one in which I was enclosed, and he may never miss that. Besides, in his laboratory, I am something like a law book in the library, a financier. He never thinks of me, or if he does, he would think he did me too great an honor if he considered to notice me. He is the most haughty enchanter of my acquaintance. Long as he has deprived me of my liberty, we have never exchanged a syllable. That is extraordinary, said Don Seleufus. What have you done to deserve such hatred or scorn? I crossed him in one of his projects, replied Asmodeus. There was a chair vacant in a certain academy which he had designed for a friend of his, a professor of necromancy, but which I had destined for a particular friend of my own. The magician set to work with one of the most potent talismans of the Casbah, but I knew better than that. I had placed my man in the service of the prime minister, whose word is worth a dozen talismans, with the alchemidians any day. While the demon was thus conversing, he was busily engaged in collecting every fragment of the broken vial, which, having thrown out the window, Signor Zambulo, said he, "Let us be gone. Hold fast by the end of my mantle, and fear nothing." However perilous this appeared to Leandro Perez, he preferred the possible danger to the uncertainty of the magician's resentment, and, accordingly, he fastened himself as well as he could to the demon, who, in an instant, whisked him out of the apartment. Solophus found that Asmodeus had not vainly boasted of his agility. They darted through the air like an arrow from the bow, and were soon perched on the tower of San Salvador. "Well, Signor Leandro," said the demon, as they alighted, "what think you now of the justice of those who have, as they slowly rumble in some antiquated vehicle, talk of a devilish bad carriage? I must thereafter think them most unreasonable politely," replied Zambulo. "I dare affirm that his Majesty of Castile has never travelled so easily, and then for speed at your rate, one might travel round the world nor care to stretch a leg." "You are really too polite," replied the devil. "But can you guess now why I have brought you here? I intend to show you all that is passing in Madrid, and this part of the town is good to begin with as any. You will allow that I could not have chosen a more appropriate situation. I am about, by my supernatural powers, to take away the roofs of the houses of this great city, and notwithstanding the darkness of the night, to reveal to your eyes whatever is doing within them." He spake, he extended his right arm, the roofs disappeared, and the student's astonished sight penetrated the interior of the surrounding dwellings, as plainly as if the noonday sun shone over them. It was, says Louis Velle de Guerra, like looking into a pastry from which a set of greedy monks had just removed the crust. The spectacle was, as you may suppose, sufficiently wonderful to rivet all the student's attention. He looked amazedly around him, and on all sides were objects which most intensely excited his curiosity. At length the devil said to him, "Signor Don Selephus, this confusion of objects which you regard with an evident pleasure is certainly very agreeable to look upon, but I must render useful to you what you would be otherwise but a frivolous amusement, to unlock for you the secret chambers of the human heart. I would explain in what all these persons that you see are engaged. All shall be upon you. All shall be open to you. I will discover the hidden motives of their deeds and reveal to you their unhidden thoughts. Where shall we begin? See, do you observe this house here to my right? Observe that old man who is counting gold and silver into heaps. He is a miserly citizen. His carriage, which he bought for next to nothing at the sale of an alcalde of Cortez, and which to save expense still sports the arms of its late owner. It's drawn by a pair of worthless mules, which he feeds according to the law of 12 tables that it's to stay. He gives each daily 1 pound of barley. He treats them as the Romans treated their slaves, wisely, but not too well. It is now 2 years since he returned from the Indies, bringing with him innumerable bars of gold, which he has since converted into coin. Look at that old fool. With what satisfaction he gloats over his riches, and now see what is passing in an adjoining chamber of the same house. Do you observe 2 young men with that old woman? Yes, replied Solophus. They are probably his children. No. No, said the devil. They are his nephews. And what is better in their opinion? His heirs. In their anxiety for his welfare, they have invited a sorceress to ascertain when death will take from their dear uncle and leave to them the division of his spoil. In the next house, there are a pair of pictures worth remarking. One is antiquated coquette who is retiring to rest after depositing on her toilet her hair, her eyebrows, and her teeth. The other is a gallant sexagenarian who has just returned from the love campaign. He has already closed one eye in its case and placed the whiskers and peruke on the dressing table. His valet is now easing him of an arm and one leg to put him to bed with the rest. If I may trust my eyes, cried Zambullo. I see the next room a tall young damsel, quite a model for an artist. What a lovely form and air! I see, said the devil. Well, ha ha! That young beauty is an elder sister of the gallant I have just described, and is worthy pendant to the coquette, who is under the same roof. Her figure, that you so much admire, is really good, but then she is indebted for it to an ingenious machinist, whom I patronize. Her bust, her hips, are formed after my own patent, and it's only last Sunday that she generously dropped her bustle at the door of this very church on the occasion of a charity sermon. Nevertheless, as she affects the juvenile, she has two cavaliers who ardently dispute her favor. Nay, they have even come to blows on the occasion. Madmen, two dogs fighting for a bone. Prithee, laugh with me at an amateur concert, which is performing in a neighboring mansion, an after-supper offering to Apollo. They are singing canatas. An old counselor has composed the air, and the words are by Alguazil, who does the amiable after the fashion among his friends. An ass who writes verses for his own pleasure and for the punishment of others. A harpsichord and a clarinet form the accompaniment. Excuse me. A lanky chorister who squeaks marvelously takes the treble, and a young girl with a hoarse voice the bass. What a delightful party, cried Don Salafus. Had they tried expressly to get up a musical extravaganza, they could not have succeeded better. Cast your eyes on that superb mansion, continued the demon, and you will perceive a nobleman lying in a splendid apartment. He has near his couch a casket filled with a billet doux, in which he is luxuriating, that the sweet nothings they contain may lull his senses gently to repose. They ought to be dear to him, for they are from Signora he adores, and who so well appreciates the value of her favors that she will soon reduce him to the necessity of soliciting the exile of viceroyalty for his own support. Let us leave them to watch the stir they are making in the next house to the left. Can you distinguish a lady in bed with a red damask furniture? Her name is Donna Fabula. She is of high rank, and is about to present an heir to her spouse, the aged Don Toribio, whom you see by her side, endeavoring to soothe the pangs of this lady until the arrival of the midwife. It is not delightful to witness so much tenderness. The cries of his dear better half pierce him to the soul. He is overwhelmed with grief. He suffers as much as his wife. With what care, with what earnestness does he bend over her. Really, said Leandro, the man does appear deeply affected, but I perceive in the room above a youngster, apparently domestic, who sleeps soundly enough. He troubles himself not for the event, and yet it ought to interest him, replied Asmodeus. For the sleeper is the first cause of this mistress's sufferings. But see, a little beyond, continued the demon, in that low room you may observe an old wretch who is anointing himself with lard. He is about to join an assembly of wizards, which takes place tonight between San Sebastian and Fontainebleau. I would carry you thither in a moment, as it would amuse you, but that I fear I might be recognized by the devil who personates the goat. The devil and you, then, said the scholar, are not good friends? Oh, no, indeed. You are right, replied Asmodeus. He is that pillar dock of whom I told you. The scoundrel would betray me and soon inform the magician of my flight. You have perhaps had some other squabble with this gentleman? Precisely so, said the demon. Some 10 years ago, we had a second difference about a young Parisian who was thinking of commencing life. I wanted to make him a banker's clerk, and I a lady killer. Our comrades settled the dispute by making him a wretched monk. This done, they reconciled us, was embraced, and from that time have been mortal foes. But have done with this belle assembly, said Don Xelaphus. I am not at all curious to witness it. Let us continue our scrutiny into what is before us. What is the meaning of those sparks of fire which issue from yonder cellar? They proceed from one of the most absurd occupations of mankind, replied the devil. The grave personage of whom you behold near the furnace is an alchemist, and the flames are gradually consuming his rich patrimony, never to yield him what he seeks in return. Between ourselves, the philosopher's stone is a chimera that I myself invented to amuse the wit of man. Who ever sees to pass those bounds which the laws of nature have prescribed for his intelligence? The alchemist's neighbor is an honest apothecary, who, you perceive, is still at his labors with his aged wife and assistant. You would never guess what they're about. The apothecary is compounding the progenitive pill for an old advocate who is to be married tomorrow. The assistant is mixing a laxative potion, and the old lady is pounding astringent drugs in a mortar. I perceive in the house facing the apothecary's, said Zambulio, a man who has just jumped out of bed and is hastily dressing. Pshaw, replied the spirit. He need not hurry himself. He is a physician and has been sent for by a prelate, who, since he has retired to rest about an hour, has absurdly coughed 2 or 3 times. But look a little further in the garret on the right, and try to, if you cannot distinguish, a man half-dressed who is walking up and down the room, dimly lit by a single lamp. I see, said the student, and so clearly that I wouldn't undertake to furnish you with inventory of his chattels, to wit, the truckle bed, the 3-legged stool, and the deal table. The walls seem to be dubbed all over with black paint. And what appears, dubbed over with black paint. That exalted personage, said Asmodeus, is a pet. And what appears to you black paint are tragic verses with which he has ornamented his apartment, being obliged for want of paper to commit to his effusions to the wall. By his agitation and frenzied air, I conclude he is now busily encouraging on some work of importance, said Don Xelaphus. You are not far out, replied the devil. He only yesterday completed the last act of an interesting tragedy, entitled The Universal Deluge. He cannot be reproached for having violated the unity of a place, at all events, as the entire action is limited to Noah's Ark. I can assure you it's the first-rate drama. All of the animals talk as learnedly as professors. It is, of course, it it of course must have been the dedication upon which he was laboring for the last 6 hours, and he is at this very moment turning to the last period. It will be indeed a masterpiece of adulterary composition. Every single and political virtue, every grace that can adorn, all that tends to render man illustrious, either by his own deeds or those of his ancestors, and attributed to his object, never was a praise more lavishly bestowed, never was incense burnt more liberally. For whom, then, all of the world is so magnificent, an apotheosis intended? Why, replied the demon, the poet himself has not yet determined that. He has put in everything but the name. However, he hopes to find some vain noble who may be more liberal than those to whom he has dedicated his former productions. Although the purchasers of imaginary virtues are becoming every day more rare, it is not my fault that it is so, for it is a fault corrected in the wealthy patrons of literature, and a great benefit rendered to the public, who were certain to be deluged by a trash from the Swiss of the press, so long as the books were written merely for the produce of their dedications. Apropos of this subject, added the demon, I will relate to you a curious anecdote. It is not long since an illustrious lady accepted the honor of a dedication from a celebrated novelist, who, by the by, writes so many in praise of other women that he thinks himself at liberty to abuse the one peculiarly his own. The lady in question was anxious to see the address before it was printed, and not finding herself described to her taste, she wisely undertook the task and gave herself all those inconvenient virtues which the world so much admires. She then sent it to the author, who, of course, had weighty reasons for adopting it. "Hallo!" cried Leandro. Surely those are robbers who are entering that house by the balcony." "Precisely," so said Asmodeus. They are brigands, and the house is a banker's. Watch them. You will be amused. See, they have... One moment. They have opened the safe and are fettering everywhere, but the banker has been before them. He set out yesterday for Holland and has taken with him the contents of his coffers for fear of accidents. They may make a merit of their visit by informing his unfortunate depositors of their loss. There is another thief and Zambullo mounting by the silken ladder into a neighboring dwelling. You are mistaken there, replied the devil. At all events, it is not gold he seeks. He is a marquis. Who would rob a young maiden of the name of which, however, she is not unwilling to part? Never was stand and deliver more graciously received. He, of course, was sworn he will marry her, and she, of course, believes him. For a marquis's promise have unlimited credit upon lovers' exchange. I am curious to learn, interrupted the student, what that man in a nightcap and a dressing gown is about. He is writing very studiously, and near him is a little black figure who occasionally guides his hand. He is the register of all civil courts, replied the demon, and to oblige a guardian is the gentleman in black, who seems enjoying the sport of Griphael, the registrar's devil. Griphael, then, said Don Selaphus, is a sort of deputy to Flagel, for as he is the spirit of the bar, the registrars are doubtless included his department. Not so, replied Asmodeus. The registrars have been thought deserving of their peculiar demon, and I assure you they find him quite enough to do. Let's just see where we are. Nope. I think that's where we end for the evening. It's quite long. I know it was getting good, but I'll be back next week. A little bit of an update. The 27th, I will be in Boston for SatanCon. 27. So that week, it's in about 2 weeks. So in a couple of weeks, we will not have story time because I will be busy. Nonetheless, I will be here other times. And with that, thank you for all of the likes, the comments, the shares. You mean the world to me. Thank you for being here. Sweet dreams. And until next time, good night.